Am I recording here? Must be. Okay, so one of the other things that they talked about in that video was the Blitzkrieg. Blitzkrieg was the fast-moving version of the German attack. Unlike World War I, where they settled in for the trenches and they settled in for the long haul, this time Hitler recognizes the mistakes and he moves lightning speed. Blitzkrieg is brutal aerial bombardment, fast-moving tanks, superhuman soldiers. It's called the Lightning War. As I mentioned, it's a very different war from the World War II, the trenches that they were expecting. But the problem is that the French and the German, or the French and the English, are still expecting that type of war. So they start to dig in once the invasion of Poland happens. They start to dig trenches. They say, "Hey, we learned from what happened in World War I. Look at the German trenches. We're going to start doing that. We're going to make it really nice." Problem is, Hitler has other ideas. So we already talked about the appeasement and everything. Fine with the takeover of Sudetenland, but no more of Czechoslovakia. 1939, he invades Czechoslovakia. Um, Hitler invades in September 1st, 1939. As I mentioned, it was tanks versus horses. He basically walks into Poland and says, "This is mine now." I mean, if he had the Austrians say, "Yay, welcome Hitler," he had very little resistance compared to that in Poland. They didn't want him, but he had 1.5 million soldiers, 2,000 airplanes, 2,500 tanks. Not bad for a place that is supposed to have just 100,000 soldiers, no or no air, no navy, no anything else. He has built himself up since then. September 3rd, England and France, they finally declare war. The important part to note here is Canada makes its own decision September 10th. It debates it in the House of Commons, and they finally have their own say. They're not going to war because Britain says so on September the 2nd or September 3rd. They do it themselves. Hitler, however, is afraid of this because France and Britain, France has the best trained army in the world. After World War I, they continued going on with their training. They continued with the enlistments just in case something happened again. England has the best naval power. It has for decades, for centuries. And Hitler's going, uh-oh, maybe I crossed the line a little bit. So when this happens, what happens is called the phony war. The phony war is basically while the Allies, they're all kind of sitting along the French line, and they're waiting for Germany to do something. And while this is happening, Hitler is preparing, he's strategizing, he's getting more tanks built, he's putting more men into military service, he's getting things ready and ready and ready. He can't believe that the French aren't actually attacking him. The stalemate goes from 1939 until 1940. And then during this time, Hitler is hitting Norway and Denmark because he wants the metals that they have. He wants to, get into the production. Let's see, by May, Norway is in Hitler's hands. Chamberlain, he resigns in disgrace. Chamberlain is the one who came up with the idea of appeasement. He's the British Prime Minister. He resigns in disgrace, and Churchill becomes the Prime Minister. That same day, Belgium and Holland are under attack by Germany. So, yay, I'm now the Prime Minister. Hey, Mr. Prime Minister, guess what's happening over here? Germany is invading. So we see here, you've got Germany, we've got the French area right here, you've got Belgium right off to the side. France has started to build what's called the Maginot Line, and this is their form of trenches. They get the first half of this built, they build it around the German area, and they say, yeah, we're good now. There's no way that Belgium's going to attack us, so we don't have to worry about that. What they don't think of is that Germany is going to come in through Belgium, come back around, and take out their trenches from behind. In the Ardennes forest, right up here in the Belgian border, it's right up around this area here, there is this giant forest, and it's called the Ardennes. Oh, wrong way. It's called the Ardennes, and it stretches all the way back to the German border. The French are hearing all these reports during the phony war that, the Germans are mobilizing. They are setting up shop here at the Ardennes forest. It's a big forest. They're not going to get through that. It's full of trees. What are they going to do? Drop or just push the tanks through the trees? Can't do it. We're not going to stress on it. So, they ignore this information. They ignore the intel. We've got the Magno line, which is, covering us from here to here. We're covering all of Germany. We are good. As I said, the Ardennes Forest is right here. Hitler has put all of their people into this area here, and they push through. They sweep in, they circle back up, they trap the elite British forces and the French forces. The Germans are attacking swiftly, and the Allies, they have no idea what to do, because the last war trained them that this is going to be a long, drawn-out trench warfare type system. They weren't ready for the swiftness of the German attack. The German lightning strike, the Blitzkrieg, based on timing, speed, and guts. Okay, it makes up for the much smaller German army versus the more powerful British and French armies. They have used airplanes effectively as weapons. They have introduced the idea of paratroopers, where parachuting in behind enemy lines. They are dropping big bombs out of the planes. Remember World War I, they had the smaller planes. If they had bombs, it was just tiny little things. Germany has, because of the Spanish Civil War, they've been able to increase. They've been able to practice, and they've been able to say, if we put these big bombs on things, we're going to be able to make a much bigger impact. So they start doing this type of stuff. They have the tanks, the panzer divisions. As I said, this big tank versus a tiny little horse. Who's going to win? They are using radio communications, while the French are still using telephone lines. Well, if you know that the enemy is using telephone line instead of it going through the air, just chop down the phone lines. The French are paralyzed because they can't get communications back or forth. And the big part is what's called the super soldier. Literally, and I'm going to move this around so that people can see it. The soldiers of the German army are literally on crystal meth. It is an over-the-counter drug that they have been prescribed. They're getting higher doses of it, but it makes them aggressive, it makes them forceful, and when they take 2 or 3 doses of it, it turns them into a zombie state. And if anybody watches The Walking Dead, you know the zombie state, they're not stopping for nothing. These guys are hopped up on drugs, and it's just kill, kill, kill. The commander is just saying, push forward. And as they're pushing forward, they're killing everything in their path. They're literally on drugs. So, the French, they thought it would take the Germans 2 weeks to reach them. It took 3 days. This is because the guys are on drugs. They are racing ahead of the tanks, which are moving at a very fast clip, but because these guys are so hopped up, they are just running through absolutely everything. If the tanks have to get stopped by something, they're out there and they're just fighting through. It took 3 days for the French to realize that they're in trouble. Within 5 days, Churchill, the new Prime Minister of England, gets a phone call from the Prime Minister of France saying, the battle's lost, we're done, we're in trouble. This is where Hitler makes his biggest mistake, and that's because he stops. Yay, we've won, we've got to this point, we're going to take a break now, guys. I mean, let the troops calm down, let them get out of their zombie-induced haze from the crystal meth. But it gives the English time to get their troops out. And Dunkirk is a very important thing. They mention it in the video clip, and I just want to reemphasize that. And that's because the British Navy is not ready to go. But Churchill, takes a look and he says, we need these boys off the beaches. So he calls up the regular fishing fleets. He calls up any man who has a vessel sitting in the harbor. I don't care if it's a tiny little land craft, if you've got an ocean-going yacht, whatever you've got, get it over to Dunkirk. We need to get our boys off the beaches. He's hoping to get 45,000 of the soldiers rescued. He gets 340,000 rescued. And it's not by the big ships, it's by these fishing trawlers and these little sailboats. The British people really step up. They get over there, they risk their own necks in order to get these British boys off the beaches. That's a very heroic moment. So just a quick recap. The majority of all German forces, they are in the Ardennes Forest. They are ready to push through to go into France, and one airstrike. All they needed was one airstrike. If they had have listened to the reports and France had to send up that one plane to take a look, they would have been able to blow them out of the water. They would have been able to just strafe them, knock out all of the German military in one strike. Part of the aftermath, because France has now fallen, the Treaty of Versailles was signed in a railway car. And Hitler orders that railway car brought out of the museum that it's sitting in. He puts it in the same spot where the German people had to sign their, we give up the Treaty of Versailles, and he makes the French government sign their own surrender in the same train car, in the same spot, saying, we give up. Kind of a nice little bit of irony there for him. In doing so, Hitler is saying, I have brought you back pride. I have righted the wrong of the Treaty of Versailles. I have done this for the German people. We are back. We have taken over France. And just an image of the troops. This is the German troops marching into the French Colosseum. But why did the French give up so quickly? A couple of very big reasons. One is that they're a city of culture and architecture. And they saw what was happening in places like Rotterdam and Warsaw. And when Hitler and his armies marched through, they just laid waste to the place. They destroyed absolutely everything. They looted it. They blew up buildings. They just completely decimated it. In Paris, they're taking a look and going, we've got some real national treasures here. We can't let that happen. It's better that we give up now and live to fight another day than to lose everything that makes us Paris. So they give up. June 14th, Paris is declared an open city, which means Hitler has taken over. And what happens to the men of Paris? They are shipped back to Germany to work as slave labor so that the factories can open up open up the German men and send them off to fight. So now they are working in the German factories as slave labor for nothing, and Germany has, effectively decided to wipe out a good chunk of France. So that is all for that one. As I said, it's kind of a blitzkrieg of the blitzkrieg, but it gives you the idea.